Man, you guys are hooking me up. Absolutely hooking me up. I tried the single arm pull downs today and it was freaking amazing. Absolutely amazing exercise. Incredible stretch. Incredible freedom of movement around the joint. There's no restriction. It just feels so natural. Now that I've tried the single arm pull downs, I'm like, wow, man, when you're doing two-handed pull downs, you feel so restricted, so locked up. All the joints are fighting each other. It's just not smooth in comparison to a single. The joint goes wherever it needs to go. It's not restricted by a freaking straight bar and it's fighting the other joint on the other side of the damn body. It just goes. And the stretch is insane. Like you can literally rotate your body and stretch out that lat like nobody's business. Incredible pump, incredible feeling. And all thanks to one of you lads that said, oh man, probably 4 or 5 videos ago, you have to try the single arm pull downs. And I was like, yeah, I'll give it a shot, man. I absolutely will give it a shot. The bodybuilding sphere of training is such an art, man. I feel like it's much more of an art than any other strength barbell sport that you can do. For the simple fact that you see effects immediately. Like if I get you to do the 2-block bench press with bands, you'll do it, but you need to wait 3, 4, 6 weeks to see the effects onto your normal bench, competition bench. But with bodybuilding, it's all about activation, it's all about feel, it's all about the pump, it's all about how it feels right now. Right now. And then so it's almost like you're taking vital signs of that exercise as you go along. It's like a steady stream of information. The moment I did the first set with like next to no weight with the single arm, I was like, this is amazing. So you fellas are hooking me up with information, with all these different ideas. And because I'm in this mind space right now, where I'm just trying anything and everything with like basic structure, where I do upper pull push and then lower pull push. Those are the only kind of restrictions that I have. 4 days and I rotate them. And so today I came in, hit my squats, warmed up with squats, hit the squat 180, super comfortable. And I turn around and I look straight at the pull down machine. I'm like, okay, I want to hit that next as I've been doing it. And then I'll do some sort of horizontal pulling. I turn around, pull down machines being used. All 3 of them are. And so I was like, oh crap, what do I do now? So I went straight into horizontals. So this is the first time I've kind of jumbled up the exercise order of the session. Surprise, surprise, I was able to push this thing harder, right? Because it's the first one up. That felt all right. I think this machine that I'm using with the horizontal pull, I don't know what it's called, isolateral row or something like that. This is the thing with doing these machines, man. Like, there's so many different names for them, different brands, that it's hard to jot down what I'm doing. And when I'm jotting it down, I'm not even putting weights. I'm just doing 1 plate, 2 plate, 3 plate. Like, because, what is the weight? What is the actual weight, man? With cables, it tells you what the weight is, but like with plate loaded, you have no idea, man. It's just 1 plate, 2 plate, and that's it. 3 plate, 4, whatever. I don't know what it is about it, man, but as soon as I started doing the single arm pull downs, I started thinking about that phenomenon. I'm going to forget it. I looked it up before because it sparked my curiosity again. What's it called? Bilateral deficit phenomenon. I think it's something like that. Bilateral deficit phenomenon. And what that basically explains, it's a scientific idea that's been proven with some research. What that's trying to explain is that why are we stronger when we're doing one-handed stuff, one-legged stuff, unilateral stuff? Why are we stronger? And what do I mean by stronger? We're stronger because we are doing more than 50% of the two-handed version or the two-legged version. So I'll give you an example. A few years ago, I got into a same type of mindset with this unilateral stuff. I got quite hot about it. And I started doing Bulgarian split squats. And I started trying to progress them. So at the time, I think my max squat was like 200, 210 maybe, something like that, right? And so I started doing the Bulgarian split squats, and very soon, like within a session or two, I'm doing 100 kilos. Then by the third session, I'm doing 120, then 130, then 140. And I remember, I could be wrong about this, but I definitely hit 140, but I reckon I even hit 160 for a single. So I'm able to do a Bulgarian split squat with 160 kilos, but my max squat, let's say it was 210 kilos. It was between 200 and 210 kilos. What the hell is going on here? How does removing one limb out of the picture produce more than 50% of the power that you should have? So logic would serve that if you're standing with 2 feet and you do a squat and you squat 200 kilos, if you start doing it with one leg, if you rest the other leg on the other side and you do it with one leg, you should be doing 100 kilos, 50%. And probably, in my mind, you should probably even be doing less because there's a stability component. It's hella awkward. So I made a bunch of videos around that time, and one of you guys, actually there was a whole stack of you guys that brought this idea up and gave me links to read. And I definitely read some stuff about this phenomenon called bilateral deficit phenomenon, which basically means when you're using 2 feet or 2 arms, there is a deficit that occurs and there's a discrepancy. And it's not 50% of your bilateral strength that you experience in unilateral. It's in fact more. And what the research is saying and what the science is saying is that there is a neural component to this whole problem where, think of it as the nervous system, the more things that are happening, the more limbs, the more complex the movement is, the more spread out the neural drive is, and then everything gets a little bit, right? Every component of the body gets a little bit of neural fire, let's call it. But when you eliminate all this stuff and you do one leg or one arm, that neural drive goes to one thing. And so you get 100% of the CNS firing up that one limb, whereas when you're doing bilateral, it's spreading it over 2, maybe even other areas because it becomes more complex. So what they're saying is that unilateral training is very, very viable because you have the full attention of your nervous system and you can exhibit more force when you're doing unilateral. This is why, and this is the science and explanation behind it, this is why you can squat 70% of your 1 rep max on a back squat, or whatever it is, 60%. Most people in a few sessions will be able to hit 50%, which is unreal, right? Because it's taken me damn near 10 years to squat 212, and you're telling me within a couple of sessions I've got my single leg to up more than 50%. It just seems like a cheat code, absolute cheat code. Now, the very question that you probably guys are thinking is, what the hell did you stop doing that? Well, I started pushing and pushing and pushing, and then like after a few sessions, my knee felt like it was going to freaking explode. I felt like I was going to do an ACL. It felt so, there was no pain. It's just, I had this feeling that my knee was so freaking unstable that when you get that knee valgus when you're doing it, your knee is like in free space, and it was just worrying me, and it gave me this icky feeling, and so I stopped. What I should have freaking done, you should have dropped the weight down in retrospect. I should have dropped the weight down, and I should have done sets of 10 with like, I don't know, 40 or 50% of the weight of my 1 rep max, bilateral version. So now we go back to this single arm pull down business. I'm having the same feeling. Now today, this was the last thing I did in the gym, man. I ran around, I got absolutely exhausted. And so when I was doing lat pull downs first, I could do 80 kilos in that form that I'm doing where I'm looking up and contracting. I'm doing 80 kilos for a set of 10, right, in the lat pull down. Well, today, after absolutely getting smoked, I was able to do 35 kilos single arm pull downs for a set of 10. I did 5 sets of that. So automatically I'm like, wow, that's really, really impressive for a fully fatigued lat, bicep. The whole freaking system is tired, and yet I'm basically very nearing my bilateral equivalent strength. And so then I start thinking about this, and then I remember this phenomenon. I didn't really know like what the research. I quickly kind of found it. This bilateral deficit phenomenon, which is this idea that they're trying to explain. But there's something to this, and it sparked more thought to me. Like now that I'm doing this bodybuilding stuff, this is a great way to experiment this stuff for a hypertrophy reason, not for strength reasons, just hypertrophy. Doing single arm stuff. Now, I probably a few months ago when I was doing the AMRAP stuff, I started doing the single arm rows with the dumbbells at home. And I made a video then that I said, wow, my lats were absolutely getting smoked by doing a single arm rowing. Now, I have tried this before, and after a few sessions when I upped the weight, and the weight's not overpowering by any means, I start to get this groin feeling or this like low abdomen feeling like I'm going to tear a freaking hernia. I don't know why, but I've seen a number of videos online. Athlete X spoke about it at length, how there's this huge incidence of people getting sports hernias when they're doing this single arm rowing. And he was trying to teach you and teach us how to position yourself, not to elevate the knee onto a bench and all these different things. But anyway, I did a few sessions of the rowing and I was like, God damn, I'm getting that feeling. And I've had this feeling in the past, and so I have to stop. And so then I would have to kind of do some core activation to activate the obliques and all this stuff just to get rid of that feeling, because it's a wild feeling. The only other exercise that's giving me that is rack pulls. Below the knee rack pulls gave me that feeling as well. And so you can ignore that, and then a few months track, you're booked in for a surgery to repair your hernia, or you can pick up on these things and be like, this is something worrying me. The feeling is not right. It's like a sharp feeling in that inguinal area, or the inguinal line, or the groin, basically, where your thigh connects with the abdomen, right in the joint, in the hip. That's kind of where you feel it, like a sharp feeling. And I think that sharp feeling is a sensation of some of that tissue is being, maybe the muscular tissue is being stretched out, that fascia is being stretched out. And what a hernia really is that part of the bowel protrudes through a weakness of the abdominal wall and protrudes out. And so there's a bit of bowel poking through your abdominal wall. Now, number one, that's not a good idea, because now you have bowel outside your body. But the second thing is you can get something that's actually quite painful and needs surgical repair sometimes. When that particular bowel pops out and then the muscle underneath it pinches it. And so now you have this bowel trapped outside of the wall and can't come back in, can't find its way back in. That is called an incarcerated hernia. Trouble with that is that tissue now doesn't get a lot of blood supply. That bowel doesn't get a lot of blood supply because it's been pinched off. And you can get necrosis, you can get basically starved of oxygen, and you can get infected, and all sorts of trouble happens. So you don't want to go down the line of hernias. And so the rowing at home was kind of worrisome to me because of the abdomen. I did not think about overhead, vertical rowing, or let's say pull down. I can't do single arm pull-ups. I'm way not strong for that. But this lat pull down, when one of you guys mentioned, I was like, oh my God, that's like rowing, but without the abdomen worrying. It's rowing without the hernia trouble. So then I did it today, and I'm like, wow, it feels very, very similar to single arm rowing in the sense that the lat is free, huge range of motion, huge stretching, huge contraction, because now like you can rotate into the lat. It's like this huge arc of motion, and it just feels freaking amazing. There's a huge stretch, huge contraction, and you got this bilateral deficit thing going on as well. So you're using more weight than you would be in a bilateral version of the pull down. It's like, wow, man, there's a whole bunch of benefits here that are just circling around. Why not do it? So if you're listening to this and you're like, I don't know, just give it one shot, man. Like do your lat, pull down, whatever, and then do the single arm, put the single handle on, and just give it a shot, man, and try and stretch it. Now, I had trouble today because the seat is kind of like too high. I'm too tall for the machine. So I was kind of bottoming out. The stack was completely resting when I was stretching out. So then I had to like sit on the floor, and then I was getting it. And the reason why you can sit on the floor, you don't need those leg pads on, is because you're lifting half of the weight, right? So I was using 35 kilos, and that 35 kilos is not going to lift a 100 kilo bloke, right? So you can sit on the ground and do it, and it's freaking amazing. I'm already looking forward to doing it next session. I actually want to do it as my number one primary thing. Really get the lats stretched out and pumped, and then do the bilateral pull down and the rowing and go from there. But I can't remember who the fellow was that mentioned this, but thank you. This is what I love about the community. This is what I love about you guys. It's like a big brainstorm, and I learn a lot from you guys. And I tried all this stuff, and I love it, obviously. So there's a lot of passion in my voice when I'm talking about this stuff because I genuinely love doing this stuff. So I had a ball today with this freaking single arm pull down business. I've never done this before. Absolutely amazing. Appreciate you guys, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace out.